Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And football season is finally here. So, Matt, let's rip it. Back on schedule. How's high school and youth football been going?
Well, for the first time in a long time, we were on the winning side for everything. Varsity was a win. Third and fourth grade was a win. JV was a win. Varsity opened up at home versus West Shamokin, and we took care of business. Had a couple of touchdown passes. Actually had 2 touchdown passes called back for penalties. Could have ended up with five passing day.
Wait, what grade was that? Was that high school or was that youth?
That was high school.
I was going to say, how much is your youth team passing?
We didn't even attempt to pass.
I would have been surprised.
Well, it was funny because with our youth program, we had a scrimmage last week, and it was really probably overly scripted, trying to make sure each kid had X number of plays, and it was like a really even rotation. And with rotating people as much as we were, we could barely even move the ball. Like, we were struggling with the center exchange, and it just was really chaotic. But we went with a little bit different of a rotation and kept our line pretty solid and paid dividends because we moved the ball really well, and we actually pitched a shutout. We won 20 or 22-0, 20-0.
That's good, dude. What do you think the outlook of your season is? Because I know some teams aren't really ranked high when you go in. So,
well, I mean, I want to be cautiously optimistic across the board because I feel like varsity-wise, we have some pretty good athletes right now, and we're really young. We're playing a lot of younger freshmen and sophomores. It kind of scares me, but I think as they mature, we're only going to get better as the season progresses. So our younger program, we opened our season with Indiana, and they're like a 4A school. We're only single A, so to come out and be competitive with them, I feel like it really gives us the opportunity to progress and have a championship run, possibly.
Yeah, I was wondering how that would work out because when you told me you were playing out that way, I knew some of those schools were bigger, but I guess for youth it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as you have one of the fastest players, you stand a chance. We're in a new league this year, and we open with probably 2 of the toughest games. We'll see exactly how good we are this weekend because we're playing Ligonier Valley, and they've always typically had a pretty good program.
Yeah, it always makes me laugh. I've seen like youth kids get hyped up when they're like in the peewees and they're like kid is just bigger than everyone at 5'5". Then you see like their high school senior photo and they haven't grown one bit. They just matured early. And it's like, wonder whatever happened to that kid. He used to be good. It's like, yeah, he's nothing against the kid, dude. He just stopped growing.
Well, and I've talked to coaches of other programs, and one of the things that drives me crazy is when the youth coaches will just take like the biggest kid and put him at running back, and they're like, "Oh, he's just going to run over everyone." They can't tackle him. Well, that kid eventually grows into just being an offensive lineman, but you have him running over everyone in the youth. So then, from the time they start till the time they hit junior high, it's like, I'm the running back. I'm the running back. Then you hit high school, and it's like, and you're a guard, but I'm a running back. Like, no, you're not. Who's going to block for you?
Why you calling out my brother like that, dude? He went to tackle, though.
See?
He skipped guard.
Natural progression.
No one's going to be a 6'4" running back? No.
Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, he wasn't that fast, bro. They couldn't bring him down. He was like watching Ben Roethlisberger run. But they have the X on the helmet. You can't do that.
Yep. Well, they have the stripe now. It's not quite the X of shame, but same principle.
Yeah, see, I had the same thing for soccer. It's like, I don't know who balances the teams, right? I haven't been coaching that long. Those that follow the show. we had a scrimmage just because of the way the schedules worked out with the start of school and everything. And we played our team. And at some point, it's like when you have your guy in and he's scoring every time, and I'm like, buddy, try to pass to your teammates. Like, I don't want you to only play 1 minute, right? It's just a scrimmage. You need to get some reps, and I want you to get used to playing with your teammates. But you can't just run down and score. And then we looked like jerks, right? Because our team, like they looked like they were a good bit younger, and it's like we might be good against this team, but you don't know what the other matchups are going to be like. Like, just practice working it out. But yeah, I've seen some teams that just put their best guys in and like don't really sub, except for like the required couple minutes a game, and it's like, to me, that's sad because you don't know. One of those younger kids might be a late bloomer and then blossom up, and you're discouraging them. And then you have the kid in high school that ends up being this more for football than soccer. But like, you have a kid that really didn't play, and then next thing you know, in high school, they go to 6'5" and they're like 300 pounds, and it's like, we really need you on the line out there. And it's like, I hate football though. I never got to play. So it's how you got to be careful. I think you don't want the kids to hate the sport, no matter what it is. I've seen it for like baseball too, where some guys circle back around in late, and even softball. Like, I've had guys that I've met playing softball this past year that was like, yeah, I played youth, high school. Like, I really wasn't into it. Then I had a late growth spurt, and by that time, just didn't care. And now I just play adult softball, and they're pretty good. It's like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, you can't tell me in high school, like, and maybe your high school was gigantic though. I don't know. Some high schools that are small though, you can't tell me that they don't want at least one hardworking, productive guy on the team. You need that like glue guy, the guy holding everything together. But anything else you want to talk about there?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting that we're back in business right now, and just good to be back because we're into a good flow of things. And I feel like the one thing that is a little bit different this year is with our team, we have probably 10 fewer kids than last year. So when you know what full well too, when you're trying to have so many minutes of playing time, each kid's trying to get their number of either reps or minutes or plays in. Like, trying to juggle that with 10 less kids is so much easier than it was last year when we had 36 kids trying to play. And it was like, there was a game I remember we drove down the field and we only were like 6 or 7 plays in, and we ate half the first half. I'm like, we only had 11 kids. We still got 20 some kids we got to find plays for. So it was like mad scramble trying to get everyone in.
I know. Sometimes I feel like if you can squeak a couple kids in at the beginning, then you don't have to worry about it down the stretch. But then you have the kid that's like, hey, am I going to get back in the game? Like, no. I have to break it to him. But hey, one of my favorite coaches all time, Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, he always scripted out like the first 10 plays. You think it would be helpful if on the show here we scripted out like your first play each week? We could do like a waggle to start off your next game. We have a scrimmage, or is that a real game?
We're into week 2 right now, so
we should give you 2 options, and then if the other coach is listening, because they might be, you don't know, some people are sick and they're trying to take us down, right? So we could be out there just getting notes, but we could draw up the plays here. I think you should come out with like a play action, like waggle type play right off the bat. Try to hit him. What do you think?
I don't know. A lot of with this team coming up this week, they're playing soft coverage.
So what are you gonna run? Dive. Quarterback sneak.
I really like just being stubborn and just go with outs and hitches, just like out of gun, just catch and throw type stuff. Make those cornerbacks have to tackle in space, because I feel like with single A football, you probably only have one really good corner, so the other one probably a fish, and someone you can pick on that they're not going, like, they may cover but they're not going to tackle. You have potential for some big plays.
Well, I know we usually do college after NFL, but that's what Hawaii did. Did you see that Hawaii-Stanford game on Saturday?
I saw the highlights. That was one of the games that I wanted to watch but just didn't have the time.
They had no business being on the field. And I feel like that's where the hate was coming for like Stanford's coach and like Andrew Luck's there. There's like Frank Reich, I think. Like, how awful do you have to be run out of town like 3 times? But when they went on the field in the first half, I think Stanford scored first. And I thought, well, I was cheering for Hawaii. This game's over. Stanford just looks like twice the size. It looked like the Big Ten playing a MAC team, right? And I thought, I was honestly surprised at how big Stanford looked. And then after that, it was almost like they went to the sideline and were like, all right, shut it down, boys. We can't show anything else. Like, we want to keep everything off tape, right? Let's just keep going. And then they still would have pulled out the tight win if their guy wasn't celebrating, which is what I wanted to talk about. I guess it was a TikTok dance. I don't even know. I saw the dance. I didn't even get it during the game, right? I don't know. I didn't know why they penalized them. I've seen other dances. Like, why can't they celebrate? I thought they were bringing that back. I knew they said the one thing. I didn't think that he did. They did say this year they were going to be focusing on threat type dances. Because I know Sharon Moore, Michigan's coach, he does like an arrow shooting thing. And I've seen people that were concerned on Twitter saying like, are they going to come after coach? And I was thinking like the refs would probably give him a heads up like, hey, we know that's your celebration. That would be against the rules. Like, I would be like, if he makes it all year doing it and then they throw a flag against like Ohio State, then it's like, oh, the Big Ten wants them to win, right? So like, I think some of those dances, I think the players would already know. Like, don't do a throat slash, bro. I think it was the gun one that they were trying to stop. And then there was a different one. I forget what it was. But it seemed like it was very specific. So what he did, and again, I don't know the TikTok dances, so maybe I'm like missing something. But I was very disappointed that threw the flag. I wanted Hawaii to win, so it worked out for me. But if you're that guy, you have to feel pretty crappy. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Because like I would assume he ran it by coach. I mean, even when I played high school years ago, we would tell coach like, yo, we're going to do this. And then he would say, don't do that one. Because I always bring it up. I see some of the more elaborate ones, and that's like a thing. I even had, I forget where I was watching a game with someone, and they were like, do you think they practice those dances? And I said, I know they do. Because I did the same thing in high school. I got to bring that up that I did that. But I distinctively remember like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to taunt this team this way. It wasn't like a coach thing. I mean, I'd rather do that than like some teams were like focused on like, we're going to haze each other. Like to me, that just seems like counterintuitive. But like making up celebration dances is better teamwork, I would think. Like breaking down film. All right, we're going to do this. We're going to do this dance. Right, dog? Yeah. I mean, that was back in TO era. Like, yeah, I'm going to pull a pen out. Like, no one's going to do that in high school, right? But I remember talking about that, some of that stuff, and I just don't know. Like, for him to do his own dance, he had to practice it. Unless he just dances on TikTok on the side. And maybe they were flagging him for NIL. They knew it. They said, sir, are you collecting money off that dance? We got to get you out of here. No one's going to pay to watch a loser dance, right? So we're going to have you lose this game now. And even the tackling, though. Stanford, that play where Hawaii, it was like right to get him in field goal range. Like they missed a tackle. The guy took a horrible angle. And I know it wasn't just the one play. There were a couple plays where I thought, why are they not tackling him? You're so much bigger. Just stay in front. Like it was almost like they didn't practice the fundamentals. And I almost wonder how many teams don't do that anymore. And a lot of the teams now with NIL, like all you have to do is like practice the fundamentals. Hawaii was able to do it with their spreading them out, run the short passes. They run like the same type of offense, run the shoot stuff that they've always run, right? The system QB was pretty much like a Mike Leach and Hawaii offensive type thing. Like that's what people would say. If you're in one of those two offenses, you're a system QB, like you're never going to be in the NFL. So they're putting up stats, just throwing the ball around on hitches and stuff.
Yeah, Hawaii's coach is one of the original.
Well, the old coach, not the current one, right? June Jones, you're talking about.
Well, no, Timmy Chang is their head coach right now, I believe.
He is? I didn't think that was him. I'm going to have to look that up now.
I'm almost certain it is because I think when they went with him over June Jones, I think like it's kind of like, okay, well, there's still someone that has a tie, I do believe.
Because they've tried to bring June Jones back?
Well, after trying to think of who was there, they ran into issues and they were having trouble finding people.
Yeah, it is. It is Tim Chang. Man, I didn't even know that was him.
Yeah, so he's keeping the shoot alive.
Yeah, I'm looking at their thing. So June Jones was there for the system QB run up till 2007. Norm Chow was there. I remember that. It didn't really work out. That was when they started to go downhill. He was 10-36, man. That's a horrible percentage. But Timmy Chang's not doing much better. He's only 13-25. That's why I didn't think it was anyone related. Oh my God, they had Todd Graham for a while. I forgot about that. He went a solid 500. Legendary Pitt head coach. Remember that one day? Was it even a day? I don't even remember how long he lasted there.
That was one of the dickest moves that was ever pulled.
You know what would be funny is if, since Rich Rod's back now at West Virginia, is if he runs, he starts tearing things up and then Pitt has to make a change, so they bring in Todd Graham again. And then we see two jerk coaches that the schools hate. Although I don't think West Virginia hates Rich Rod anymore. Do they? They brought him back.
They brought him back.
I still can't believe he failed at Michigan, to be honest. I feel like that's a lot of booster infighting. And maybe him not like using his newfound like blue blood recruiting powers. Because I almost wonder if the same thing's going to happen at Alabama. Right? Nick Saban's gone. You have all this blue blood talent type stuff. What'd they go? 9-4 last year, something like that? 8-5. I forget what the end record was. So if you have another year like that, are you going to get the booster support, or like is it going to end and then you're on your own? And that's because that's what happened to Rich Rod, right? Then he was kind of fighting for the tail end. He gets out. Brady Hoke gets full booster support. Michigan's back at like top 5 recruiting classes with Brady Hoke, but then he just didn't have the coaching chops, right? So on one hand, you had Rich Rod. He could clearly coach. People were mad at the defensive side of things, whatever, hired some bad DCs. But if he would have focused on the recruiting, I think there's a baseline there where Michigan wouldn't have dropped off as far. Brady Hoke was like the opposite. High recruiting classes, like losing to Rutgers, and I watched them lose to Maryland in person. Like, oh my gosh, like that's embarrassing. I don't think we lost to Maryland since. So to see that and then do like a complete twist, I wonder with the NIL stuff that's coming up, that is it gonna stick around? I see a lot of schools like the Alabamas of the world and like Georgia like petitioning to the government to step in and try to put some type of salary cap, because they know that if every school pays the same and then they have that underground like booster, like here's a car dealership giving you a car, it's kind of going back to the olden days. A lot easier where you could just pay a top recruit $100,000 to commit, and that's all it would take. I think Rashawn Gary was like what Clemson offered him, like $300,000 or something, $500,000. Now he would have easily been getting what, $5 million to be the overall number 1 recruit. I mean, Underwood got what, 10? He's a QB. I think a number 1 D lineman overall would have got at least $5 million, right?
Yeah.
There's a huge difference in price. And you'd say it's going to be a shift. I saw, the reason I brought that up is Ohio State fans. I saw in a couple articles where they were complaining about the new system and how they keep losing out on top recruits. And it's like, doesn't it make you think like you were paying under the table last time though? Like when you landed every 5-star receiver, right? Like, does it make sense? It's the same couple of schools that keep complaining. I don't hear USC complaining with the new system. They seem to be doing just fine. Same with Oregon, right? So it makes me think any school that's complaining is probably one that was cheating under the old system. I just happen to get away with it. But let's roll into NFL stuff. Cut season. I have to bring it up. Shedeur Sanders did it. He made the cut. But they made it very clear that Dylan Gabriel is the number 2 QB. And they were going to keep 4. I don't even know if they kept 4 on the roster. They cut Huntley first. After he led them to the game-winning field goal in that one game. I found myself intrigued by what they were doing. Because I think their franchise, if you're a fan of the Browns, watching their death spiral is fascinating. They had Baker. They were in the AFC Championship game, and they decided to blow it up to bring in Deshaun Watson, a quarterback that, mind you, he didn't win anything either. I don't even know if Deshaun Watson, had he even ever played for an AFC Championship? It would be one thing if you were bringing in Tom Brady. Like, sorry, Baker, you got close, but you have no other chance. Sorry, dude. We're going to bring in Tom Brady. I think Baker would have been like, that makes sense. He's awesome. And it's like, he's going to bring in Deshaun Watson. He's pretty good. He's had some off the field stuff, but he was pretty good. And then he gets hurt, and you're just eating the cash. And so now they're like chasing it, and they're saying like, well, is he I guess he would be in the 4th quarterback they're going to keep, right? He's on the IR though, isn't he still? So like, yeah. What's the difference does it make if he's on the roster or not? Yeah, I mean, I guess he could make him go to practice squad or whatever. I'm guessing his spot counts, but in a different spot.
Well, isn't that like if you put him on the practice squad that other teams can claim him?
Well, that's what I was waiting to see what happened with Donovan Edwards, right, for the Jets, because if he had a great preseason. So if they don't make room for him and he puts him on the practice squad, any team can sign him first to their roster, right? Or bid on him for the practice squad, I think. So if they don't take his contract, then it's up for bid. And if he clears waivers, then he'll end up on the Jets practice squad. But for some of those guys, you got to be kind of careful. Right. There were rumors that they were going to let Shedeur Sanders try to go through because he played awful that last game. I think he only completed like 3 passes or something. So to have him go through, the process would have been let him fall. If he would have went to the practice squad, cleared waivers, I mean, there's already people in not even just the media, but just people on like Twitter and other things that I've seen calling out for like him getting blacklisted. But it's like you can see him play. They're giving him a chance. It's not like the Kaepernick thing where he didn't ever get on. I mean, they held that one workout with him, right? Harbaugh even did that one camp. Remember, was that a satellite camp where he brought him in and they did that workout? He was like invited to the Michigan Pro Day or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that was. But yeah, so like, yeah, it would be different if he was just not getting signed. But he's playing in the preseason, and if he's not completing passes, I don't know what else you want him to do. Same goes for like a lot of guys getting cut. Yeah, I hope some of the guys do well. Players that I liked in college, whatever, guys that seem like they're good guys. But if they don't make the roster, then there's probably a reason for that. Maybe they can work their way up from the practice squad, but I just need to know. I was getting stuff ready for a fantasy draft, dude. And I saw a lot of people complaining that they had their fantasy draft like 2 weeks ago before these cuts happened. And I thought, how are you having it? Even if we would have had it this past Sunday, like that's close, but we wouldn't even have made the cuts, right? I would have probably ended up drafting someone like Donovan Edwards at like the tail end, and then him not even make the roster, and I would have had to just cut him and then have to pick up a guy on waivers, right?
Yeah.
So it seems weird that I see a lot of like ESPN was pushing it like time to get your draft in. And I thought that's really early. I feel like Labor Day weekend now with the way preseason's over, I think they're all done, right? They give you a little bit of a weekend for college football coming up, and we get a weekend the draft, and then everything can kind of be settled down. We can see what's happening, who's on the roster, who should be playing. And then that first weekend, free agency wire. is usually mayhem. Because like some receiver will get like 12 targets. I'll be sitting there debating, do I do $35? How much dollars should I waste on one weekend? So I need to make sure I don't do that this year. Just like I don't want to bid on Christian McCaffrey. He got some like new endorsement for clothes where it was all over my Twitter where I don't know why people were liking this. I don't know if it's to spite me, but he's like wearing a sweaty shirt. And I thought, if I looked at that picture, that doesn't make me want to buy your clothes, bro. Who's this for? Who is it for? And people were like, the shoes look okay. You can't even see the shoes in the photo. He's just wearing a sweaty shirt. I wouldn't buy any of his fitness gear. But I did see a lot of comments that were negative towards him about like, do you get injured if you wear this clothes? Like, you could tear your rotator cuff putting the shirt on, blow your knee out in his shoes. Like, they know that he's faking it. So I'm glad that it's not just our show that's pointing that out, that it's starting to hit the mainstream where people know not to draft McCaffrey. Because I know I'm going to be tempted, dude. If we're like around the $30 range and he's still on the board, it's going to be really hard for me not to try to take him. So let's hope that someone loses connection and goes into an auto bid and pays $75 for him so I can laugh. I don't think anyone has won the championship with McCaffrey on their roster. I haven't looked it up, but I know I had him a couple years and I didn't win anything with him. Get rid of him. I bring in Eckler, championship. I had David Johnson, championship. McCaffrey, nada. I know the guy had him, was it last year or the year before? He was in first and he was looking like he was going to light up the league. McCaffrey just decides he's done. I'm done for the year. And then that team tanked. And it made me laugh because I was like, that's what you get for drafting McCaffrey. You're like the Peyton Manning of fantasy then. Great during the early weeks. You're getting a good record. You could win the regular season championship. But then after that, playoffs hit, you're done. Might as well just sit it down.
That's right around the time where he's like, you know what? I think I need to take a rest.
He just runs right up the tunnel, like just runs right out of bounds on a 5-yard sweep and just keeps going. And he goes all the way home. And then he sells you the shirt on eBay. He's like, you want the sweaty shirt? Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. I saw one of his brothers. I forget which one. One of them played. Where did one of them play? Nebraska? The other one was at Michigan, transferred to Colorado State. I don't even know if he's still in the league. But I'm surprised that his brother, I think one of them, is it the Nebraska one, was playing wide receiver for, which game was I watching? Was it Washington? And I was just surprised to see him out there, not going to lie. I thought, which one is that? That's the McCaffrey brother. They're like bringing him around. I'm surprised all three of them weren't selling gear. But they didn't learn from Christian. He's like, you got to put the stats up first. Then you fake the injury. You don't get injured before. They have to pay you first. That's the key. That's the top secret, Matt. Then that's the kind of stuff that they're putting together at Stanford as they lose to Hawaii. They should bring him back. They could have a brain trust where it's Christian McCaffrey, Andrew Luck, all guys that just get injured and give up. Like Andrew Luck just gave up. It must be a Stanford thing, right? That's why they complained about my boy Harbaugh. They had to get him out of there. He's too tough on them. They're like, he actually wants us to play in the game. Can you believe it? This guy's a jerk. Got to get him out of here. We like to just prep and sell jerseys in the off season. But let me see what else. NFL stuff before I forget and move on. Actually, I don't even think I have any more NFL things written down. Do you have anything for the NFL you want to talk about?
So Carolina cut Hunter Renfrow. What are the odds that Pittsburgh claims him?
Why would they claim him? Did you watch him play?
Why would they not?
Dude, I watched him play at Carolina, and I thought that the Carolina's another franchise that right now I have no idea. They brought in that guy, is it Tepper? And they kept talking about how he's like a Pittsburgh guy. He knows championships. It's been a train wreck down here. I don't know. It's like almost Bob Nutting type levels where it's a joke. He's signing like vets like Thielen and that are out of it, that don't have like anything to add. And then the Vikings are actively asking to have him back so they can have another depth piece. And the Panthers are like, you know what? We're going to just ride with what we have. Not good. Like, not good. Like, there was a parody commercial. I guess it wasn't a parody. It sounded like one to me, where they had ex-players calling people on the phone to beg them to buy season tickets. And I thought, this is your pre-game commercial? Like, you know, it was like before the show, like where they would have College Game Day or like the NFL Today like show. Instead, it was like a Carolina like front office show where they had former players, and a couple of the callers like had no idea who the guys were. And then finally they got one. He's like, "Hey, I think I had your jersey." And they were like, "Yeah." And they were all celebrating in the office. And I forget even who the guys were, but I thought, this is sad, dude. Like, why are you doing this? Season tickets are expensive. I don't want to pay to go watch a team stink. There are better things to do. I think the NFL is hitting that. I mean, not just NFL. I think every sport's hitting that. And that's why you're seeing these stadium compressions happening where they're like, you know what? We're just going to have 38 luxury suites. And then we're just going to have a row of bleachers underneath them. And then they're like, are people watching it in the suites? We don't care. They're coming here for the $200 pizzas that you can get. We're just bringing them in from Food Line. They're putting the pizza on the $5 tray. We're cooking it in our oven. We're bringing it in and selling it for $200, buddy. Making our profits. Could be burnt. Could be burnt. We don't know because we don't really cook them. Like, I'm trying to follow the directions, but Food Line might be wrong. I don't know. That's like what you get, the level of service. So I've been to the Carolina Stadium and it's not bad, but I would just say that I don't have any hope for the future of the Panthers right now with the current ownership. And I'm wondering why more fans aren't vocal. I wouldn't be surprised if it'd probably be slow moving. But when some of these older owners start to pass away because they're so old, I think we're going to see a push where a lot of more teams just become like a public group owned thing because they're getting so valuable that number one, there's not enough money. There are rich people that are going to want to buy a team and then like that, have that be their thing. Right. They always show like, okay, Jerry Jones bought this for like so many million. Now it's like $1 billion. There's not that many billionaires that want to just spend money on a team that's not going to win. So I think that might help bring things back down. But again, you never know when something's going to not be popular anymore. If kids aren't playing a sport, they're not going to watch it like we see with baseball. They're able to make tons of money because they went like international. And they're still very regional. They're not bringing anywhere near the viewership that NFL is. NFL is killing them. Heck, NFL is killing NBA, hockey, NHL, MLS, soccer, and MLB combined in TV viewership of one of their games. You could combine all their games and NFL is killing them. But that could change. Boxing used to be like that. Horse racing used to be gigantic. Now it's like only people watching it. I watched a horse race over the weekend and I thought, who is this for? Everyone dressing up in ridiculous costumes and then watching the horses around. Like, you have to just be a gambler, but now you can just gamble on fun sports. Right?
Yeah.
Gamble on football or like something you know. You don't know those horses. And even if you do, you pretend, you know. But the guys doing it, they don't know either. So I feel like you have a better chance of winning. I always joke about like Tony Gwynn, but like if you could bet on him just getting a hit, he had a pretty good chance of getting a hit. Right? So the odds might not be good, but you would still get underdog odds because the odds are he's not going to get a hit. But he could go 4 for 4, buddy.
You very well could.
Bet all 4 and then you're good. You're golden. So now I don't know what going forward the cost of these franchises are going to be because I bring it up because the Celtics had sold and then they have like, there's usually like one guy's the owner and then they have a group underneath of them of other investors and it always includes like ex-athletes But I think eventually it's going to get to the point where people are just so tired of being fleeced at these games. They're not going to go. There's going to be a hit. And then you're going to see like a public Atlanta Braves type thing where it's fully on the stock market. You can buy shares. If the team's doing good, you're going to do good. Most likely, revenues are going to just keep going up anyway, unless baseball gets unpopular. But even then, they could expand it then to have like a Little League World Series. They could honestly do that with MLB and have teams from other countries play in different divisions, right? There's so many other games. You can't tell me that they couldn't have 8 teams over in like Japan or something, and then have like some teams in the Latin America countries, and then have just a lower amount of teams in the United States, where it's like New York, the Cubs, the Dodgers, and like some other bigger city teams. Right? They know like Tampa Bay Rays, they could easily move that team to Japan. No one would notice or care. Do you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to move the Jaguars out of
accurate.
Jacksonville and move them to London. They talk about it every year. They're like, come on, you know we don't like it here. Could you imagine being a fan? I wouldn't buy gear. And I bring it up because Major League Baseball right now, there's a pitch to try to bring more teams, right? Because it's very regional, and there's a huge region I complain about all the time where there's a dead area here from DC all the way down to Atlanta or Tampa Bay. They're really trying to push a team into Raleigh, and I think Raleigh's up against Nashville right now because Carolina Hurricanes do pretty well. And they always talk about like, well, if the owner, I think they got a new owner, and they talk about moving them, but it's like, where do you move them to? Right? For NHL, you move them up north to like another hockey crazed city, but right now they're the only hockey team in town. So there's a lot of people moving from the north down here to Raleigh. They get good attendance. They get good viewership. Like really, there's no other team around the area. There's no one like, I don't think Atlanta has a team anymore, right? So like it's either Florida or here. And baseball is kind of the same thing. It's like, I can't drive to a game. I don't want to go to like a minor league game. Durham Bulls I'd go watch, right? But if you bring an MLB team to Raleigh, that kind of bridges the gap for the entire East Coast because there's a lot of team in Virginia. So you have Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Those are 3 pretty big states right up the side, and they support how many college football teams? Clemson, the Gamecocks, Hokies, UNC, NC State, Wake Forest, Duke, and the Cavaliers, Virginia, at least big school time schools. But they can't have one MLB team? Heck, Clemson has like an 80,000 stadium. I know that's closer to Charlotte. I don't know if Charlotte's still in on it because they got one of the minor league teams too. Or maybe they got soccer. Did they get the MLS team? I think they did get the MLS team. So they could just go to Charlotte. But again, I don't know. Is that too close to the Braves? The Braves have had a monopoly down here for how many years? So if Raleigh got a team, would I start cheering for Raleigh, right? I can't go. I guess it depends on the owner. I can't go back to cheer for the Pirates ever. They'd have to sell the team. And that's what I think a lot of sports are going to be at. But I'll get off my soapbox. Any other professional stuff you want to talk about?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Before I get into college, I did have... we got some feedback about the one CTE research stuff that I talked about the 1 week being a good breakup topic. And so I don't know if you saw this, but there's been a recent study that came out against long distance running where it's saying that and they haven't finalized it, it hasn't been like peer reviewed yet or anything, but if you're running greater than like a marathon or maybe even marathon levels or up, especially ultra marathons, right? I think they were targeting ultra marathons, that it's not healthy for your stomach because you're not able to fuel up as you're running these, right? And that they might have found a connection between people that are doing it and an increase in colon cancer. So the theory is that as you run, like your body's taking blood away from your stomach to your legs and kind of shutting down your bowels for a bit as you're running. And as you do that for like hours at a time, they're thinking that it's causing like dead cells that can't regenerate, that just become like growths inside your colon that become colon cancer.
So are you telling me that's another reason not to run?
Well, see, that's the juxtaposition or whatever, right? Where they're saying runners are generally healthier. They live longer. They have better bones. They don't have things like knee and hip replacements. But there's like a balance, right? It's like you could run, but maybe just like focus on like a 10K or something, where I don't know. They haven't found a time frame because I don't even know. From what I read, they weren't really able to like even pin it to a marathon, because you got to think a marathon is really only, I mean, for the professionals, like you're getting what, 3 hours? I think the Boston Marathon cutoff is 3 hours. So like if it's someone like me, not really training that hard, if I'm going to run one, I'm probably looking at between 4 and 5 hours, right? More of like a modest type jog. And so then if you're running a half, you can do that in 2.5 would be about the same pace, which is what I ran on my test in like May. So going from that 2.5, I feel like I didn't have any stomach issues, didn't have like any, I mean, I guess I was getting tired, right? You get tired if you're running for 2 hours, but it wasn't like a complete shutdown to go from like the marathon. So I feel like to me, marathon might be the peak. I almost wonder what a triathlon would be like, because you're really mixing it up. I don't know if I would ever do like an ultra Ironman or whatever, because those are the ones where they really pinpointed on the ultra marathons, because it's like a double marathon, right? Which would be like 10 hours.
That doesn't even remotely sound like fun.
Or like 6 or whatever. Because that's where, I mean, you're not going to be able to keep up the 3 hour bit. I mean, some guys, I guess, run it in like 2.5 hours, a regular marathon. But it didn't say these were professional runners either. So I don't know. Is there a difference? I feel like they always talk about how people that are running that much also have a higher risk of injury. So I think there has to be a line where I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think people are going to stop doing those runs, but it's out there. I'm going to follow up and see what other additional information. It was going crazy on like, because I mean, I use my Garmin watch and stuff. We talked about it before, and I've been running to try to get in shape and trying to push myself to do a half marathon here in the fall, and then hoping to do a full marathon in the spring. To me, the marathon is like the Rocky one, right? I don't care what my time is. I just want to finish, and then that will pretty much be it, right? I think as you get better, I think I'd be more focused on time improvements. I don't think I'd ever really want to run farther than that, right? I think the next thing would be to do a triathlon, but more of like a sprint one where you're running. I think they have one down here. I don't know what the distance would be, but it was like either 10 or 20 swimming laps. Then you bike for like 13 miles and then you run a 5K, like a sprint triathlon. To me, that's more of like a test than, okay, you're going to swim for 10 miles and then bike for 100 and then run for a marathon, right? To me, that's not really let's see how great of in shape you are. That's more like, how much pain can you take? Right? Can you be out there running and working around for 10 hours a day? Probably, but why would you want to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not knocking the guys that do it. And I mean, I guess we got to wait and see what the data actually says. Like if they're able to get more people, because in reality, I think I saw when I was doing the research, I think it came out to like only like maybe 1% or even like a half a percent, or maybe it was like a 1 like 0.1% of people have even run a marathon. Just run it and complete it. And so that was kind of my goal. Like, all right, if I can do that and just say like, yeah, I've run a marathon. Right. What was your time? Like, oh, like hopefully like 4 or 5 hours. Like that's it. I mean, they usually give you 7 hours for a reason because most people aren't running it that fast. They just want to try to get to the Rocky. Like we're just finishing it. Right. I don't think
are you gonna have new shoes for your run, or are you gonna go with some old beat-in running shoes?
Well, I have my beaters right now, and I just saw that Fanatics put out like good Nike Michigan running shoes, and I thought, is that a sign that I should buy these Nike running shoes? And then I thought, we'll wait and see, because you can't just run in new shoes, dude. You imagine the blisters I would get. That would just be, although heck, if you're just thinking about, man, my foot really hurts this entire race, it really takes your mind off everything else. I don't know. Because I had that happen, one of those, remember, like I always run in the summer for the big 10K. It's always like a flood or something. And that happened one of the times where my shoe got wet and it rubbed. And I was thinking like, man, my foot's just going to be raw like halfway through. And the next thing I knew, like the race was over. And I'm like, yeah, I thought about my foot for like the last half of that race because it really bothered me. But you can't slow down or stop because you're like, if I stop and walk, the pain's only going to get worse. I know it's just from rubbing my shoe. Right. And it's not like that I don't buy like decent running shoes. It's just the fact that from my experience, they last about the same. Right? You're just running through them. Yeah, sometimes the only times I'll get in like an upgrade is if I end up wearing them weird. Like if they're like slanted, like cause maybe I'm running to the left a bunch more or something. I've noticed sometimes they'll like have a slant to them and I'm like, this is dangerous. I got to throw these away. But if I spent $200 on a pair of shoes, I don't know what the Michigan ones were. They were like 150 or something like that. And so I thought, if you spend this much on a pair of shoes, I expect them to last me like at least a couple months, right? Otherwise, I'll just keep buying what even is the brand Walmart has, like New Balance. I don't even think they're New Balance. But like the $20 running shoes there, like whatever, $30, I don't care what it is because I'm going to tear them up anyway. Right? They all have that giant foam pad on them to try to make them last longer. Now, I'm not going to go crazy and wear like a barefoot shoe. Would you do that?
I would not.
If it was on a beach, yeah. Because they did have one at the beach. I was looking to see, because I might not be able to make the Pittsburgh Marathon because of family events. So they have one that's on Tobacco Road here that's in March. So that means I would have to train. Well, I'm going to start really training hard at the beginning of September. That would give me 8 hard weeks before the half marathon to try to get my time down from like 2.5 to hopefully like 2:15 or something, right? And then how much farther can I get it down? Because I hadn't even tried to run anything until April, whenever people asked if I would run one, right? So that was like only a month and a half. I was able to prepare myself to get it at least done in 2.5 before I signed up for one, a half marathon anyway. So I have to make the call. Do I try to just sign up for one in March? Or if I miss the Pittsburgh one, the next one that's like down here, they don't run them in the summer because of the heat. So my next call would be either doing the full one in Raleigh, the Oaks Marathon in like November, which people say not to do that one because I'm going to find out whenever I run the half there, it's on the greenways. So it's hills, but I run the greenways anyway. That's where I do my running. So I feel like, okay, that's not going to be anything new for me, right? If anything, it'll be like the good old days. But I don't know. Other than that, I could go to the Outer Banks and run one there. That one's flat, but I think they said it has some sand, so I don't know the course. And if you're running 26 miles, dude, you're going to get you're going to get a mixed bag. Unless you're just running like downtown New York or something where it's going to be generally flat. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll keep you posted.
I was surprised at the difference between my running shoes, and the Vibram Verashikis. You sent me a thing for them before. If that was like the style barefoot shoe that I had run in before.
Yeah.
And I like those during when we have football camp, because when you go from morning practice to afternoon practice to youth practice, it's like your shoes just get absolutely destroyed. And I liked having those ones because you didn't have to wear socks with them. They dried relatively quick if you just had them by the fan. So like in between practices, so that you didn't like cause everyone to get sick around you from how awful they smell. You could even wash them in between practices. And I felt like through the course of the week, I really didn't notice all that much. And then on Friday, I went to put on my running shoes, and it was such a drastic difference. Like, I didn't realize how much support my running shoes actually had until I went like a week of essentially barefoot shoes, and then transitioned back into my running shoes. Like, my feet were like, oh, this is what it was supposed to be like.
Yeah. See, I had a pair of those Vibram, whatever, the ones with the toes, 5 fingers or something. And I used to run when we lived in North Carolina together, but I was running on that dirt track, remember, at the school.
Yeah.
So it was running on sand. Now where I'm running, it's pavement. So, and I had worn them out to where they just started, like the hard part was just rubbing my feet. So I ended up tossing them, and that's why I was talking to you, because I thought if I had these for being out, my number one concern is they're going to stink. Number one, no matter what they do. Now you could hose them off or whatever just for wearing them around the yard, because my yard has a good bit of sand in it, which is annoying. And so having those instead of putting real shoes on might not be bad, because normally I just wear those surfer shoes, whatever they are, like the Vagabond Sanooks or whatever. Those are like my go-to shoe. You can get them wet. You can take them off. They dry. They don't really stink. If they start to stink, you can just spray them out with the hose and then let them dry. And then guess what? They don't stink anymore. And so those are like my daily shoes if I'm not like needing sneakers. But I have transitioned to the thicker soles. So like they do have like the thinner, lighter like running shoes for like, I guess people running on a track or running sprints. They haven't lasted that long. So the thicker ones that look like whatever the ones that Walmart has, I don't know the brand. I was trying to see if I could see them to see if they had a brand on them. They have the ones, they look just like the Adidas. Like if you go to Dick's Sporting Goods and look at their running shoes, they're like what, 2-inch heels? Like some of them are ridiculous because they're built for you to run on them every day for a couple months. And so whatever the cheaper Walmart one I've had is the same as I had an Adidas pair, I've had an Asics pair, and I've had a Nike pair. They've all lasted about the exact same time frame. And so I always feel like crappy thinking, well, I bought the $200 shoe. It lasted me 6 months because I'm running so much. Is it going to be like there? And I honestly, COVID really brought it around. I've talked about on the show before. I really only started running just because at that point, like you're sitting around not doing anything. And my body just felt like, all right, I need to do something. And ever since I started running, just because things were closed, gyms were closed, everything was closed, let's just start running. I felt a lot better. Like going camping, doing other things like physical things, going to a concert. Instead of having my legs hurt at the end of the day, I'm ready to go. People I'm with, they're laying down sleeping on the ground. I'm able to just keep going. So like it keeps your body younger no matter what the research ends up coming and saying. I don't know if you should be running that long, but honestly, I recommend it. I think I saw a thing and I was trying to find it because we talked about when Ozzy died, but I thought they said that at one point they had him running like a couple of miles every morning as part of like his pre-routine so that he was able to like stay in shape for shows. That like if he had like an hour show or whatever, that he needed to like be able to jog that in the morning. And I think it was him, maybe it's someone else, but they were saying like if you could just jog 5 miles in the morning and just set that instead of doing a time. Like, don't say I'm jogging for an hour because you'll dog it, right? If you say, hey, all right, every day this week, 5 days a week, I'm going to jog, or 3 days a week even, I'm going to run 3 miles. Eventually, you're going to start running it faster because you want to get it over with, right? You're like, all right, I'm not out of
Yeah.
breath. Let's just get home. Let me just start powering in the end. And so then if you up it to like, I think I've been trying to do research, but I think they said like if you could do 5 miles 3 days a week, even at just a pace, and then you can get that down to like 30 minutes, which might be a lot for everybody. I know I'm not even there, but like, let's say you get it down to like 40 minutes, right? You're going to be in so much better shape doing things just physically around the house, and you could supplement it with like yoga or something lightweight on the days you don't run. I think that would put you in a better position physically more than anything. Lifting weights, yeah, great. But I've seen people lift weights and then have heart attacks because they have done no cardio. And it's like, that dude was jacked. He just died. He's 39, right? But I've also seen people that have heart attacks when they're out for their morning run. So I don't know. Could be supplements, could be anything. I don't know. It's a mixed bag. Got to listen to your body, I think. But I was going to throw that in, even though now we're going longer.
I thought that was a really good point of just having a set distance, and then when you're done, you're done. Because that is 100% something I've seen before, where like starting back into it was frustrating because I knew when I had faster times, oh yeah, I could definitely go at a certain pace, and then you get back into it and you realize like I'm nowhere near what I used to run it at. It was like, it doesn't matter. Just hit the distance. And then it was like, you ran it at this. Can you shave it down a little bit? Can you shave it down a little further? Or like, can you go longer before having to stop? You know, and I think that's a big part of that. So that maybe if you can only run for a short period of time, you build up to where then you're running more consistently, getting better times.
Well, see, I'll just challenge. Well, we've talked about it before. Like the VO2 max on our watches. When I started, I was like in poor health, according to that. Whenever like during COVID, like I'm not gonna lie, and I've worked my way up to where I'm in consistently good health. Not like great, but I'm like really close to pushing that bucket. And I know that if I just focus, like when I start focusing on the half marathon, I'm probably gonna get to that next level. But the one thing that I started to do, because I told you I got the steps. So I got like a stepper, like a traditional cardio thing that was able to keep my VO2 max up this past winter. And I've been able to do it pretty consistently. It's made me get kind of lazy. Like, all right, if I do the stepper hard for like 30 minutes, then I might not have to run outside. But one of the things I started to do is it just, no matter what, if I'm going to do the stepper or if I'm going to ride my indoor bike or whatever, run a mile. I mean, and if anyone's starting it, I mean, realistically, you could probably run a mile in like 10 minutes, right? Maybe if you need to work up to that, that's a good goal. Because then you can tell yourself, well, if I do this, I only have to work out for 10 minutes, right? If you get it down to like 5 minutes, which I'm not there yet, but like if I can do it in 7 minutes now, I'm pumped for the day, right?
Yeah.
I forget what, like that's what I typically go. And if I sprinted, maybe I could get it more. Cause like, it's not like I'm dying, but what I've been trying to do is just hit a consistent pace on my watch. So like, I think last week I hit like, I was just doing like 720 or something like that. And so sometimes like then when you're starting out in the winter, it's cold, but in my mind, I'm like, all right, well, if it's colder, I'm not feeling good. Let's just try to do 9 minutes. But as long as I'm under like 10 minutes, I really don't care. But as long as you're doing it and you're doing it kind of hard, I feel like you're going to stay in shape. And that's a lot easier to do. And maybe you live in an area where you just can't go outside and run around the block for a mile. But it's really not that far. For like daily routine, I feel like it has to be good for you. So that's the one thing that I've been mixing in. And so now typically I have a 3 mile course that I can run. And again, it could vary between 20 and like 30 minutes, right? Depending on what I'm doing. Not as low as 20. Because like if I go, it'd be like, 7 minutes? 21 minutes? But that's if I'm running hard. But there's a huge hill in it. So I never get down that low. So whatever I'm trying to do, that's it. Now this time I'm going to try to push it. And I'll need to make a longer course. I'll have to try to figure out if I can do like a 40-minute run a couple of times a week. And then mix that up to like an hour run, hour and a half. and try to get my time up. I don't think I'm really going to train above 2 hours because I didn't do that before and I was able to successfully run. My goal is to be able to run hard for like an hour, hour and a half. And then you should be able to push yourself to the half marathon, right? But it might not work out. Who knows? I'll let you know. With that, I think the only other thing I had today was called Triple Talk. I watched Farmageddon. Iowa State and Kansas State did not look good. I know it was raining. They did not look like, even comparing them to Stanford, they didn't look as big is what I think they used to look. And maybe it was a first game back. I didn't really get to see any games to compare them. But when I was looking at the Big Ten, was it camp days or whatever, just seeing the size difference between some of the Big 12 teams and what I saw from Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State and Oregon, it just seems like now we're seeing a night and day difference. I know a lot of people have predicted Kansas State to make the playoffs. I've seen a lot of people predict Iowa State to make the playoffs. I know people are high on Matt Campbell. Heck, I know people during COVID that wanted Harbaugh fired and Matt Campbell hired at Michigan. I'm glad the way things worked out because I don't think Matt Campbell would have won a national championship. Maybe I'm wrong. But if he gets Iowa State into the playoffs, then maybe I'll start to have a little bit more respect. But I saw that, and Arizona State made it the first year of expanded playoffs, right? So let's see what they can do. I did not see two contenders in that game. I don't know what's going on in the Big 12, but those teams, to me, they're not playoff contenders. If they made the playoffs, I think they'd get bounced week one. With that, I brought up those four teams because the team talent composite came out this week. And we've talked about it before where team usually has to be in the top 10. I think the only teams that have won the national championship without being in the top 10 of the composite were Michigan in 23. They were like 13. And Clemson, was it their first year, 15? Where they were like 13 too. Like them and Michigan were very close together in terms of position rankings, where it was heavy on the line, high ranking on the quarterback, and then the rest were kind of lower outside of that range. And it seems like if you have a good rankings in the trenches and a good quarterback, you can win it. But right now, the Big Ten has four teams in that top 10. Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State. So historically, this would be the year. I think this is the first time. I haven't gone back and looked, but this is the first time I've seen Penn State really get up into that number 10, top 10 ranking. And they have the senior class that I've been talking about. They don't have as many 5 stars as, say, in Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, or Texas right now. Those four teams are kind of a head and shoulders above with the 5 stars. Then you have that other group of the remaining 6 where it's Oregon, LSU, Clemson, A&M, Penn State, and Michigan. Everyone else, I guess Miami's up there too, but they're lower in the rankings because they don't have as many blue chips. Right? There's a difference between having a handful of 5 stars and then not as many blue chips, where the top 10, you really have to have a blue chip ratio. Notre Dame has a high blue chip, but they only have 2 5 stars. I don't know. Going back to those 2 teams that were lower, Michigan and Clemson, I want to say Michigan had at least 3. Will Johnson, JJ, and Donovan Edwards, right? In the composite anyway. And I know Clemson probably had more. Who was even on it? Was Sammy Watkins even on the team still? Like, they had some higher ranking dudes, especially on their D line, I think. So I wouldn't be shocked if a team lower in the rankings with the expanded playoff, you have a better chance of getting in. Talent still kind of loads it overall. That's why a team like Ohio State last year can finish 4th in the Big Ten, make up with it because they're number 3 in talent composite, and win the national championship on a playoff run. You can get on a heater. And so they play in the biggest game of the weekend, Texas, Ohio State. Who do you got, Matt?
I'm going to go with Texas here.
Because you're buying a Manning jersey, right?
I'm not buying a Manning jersey, but I feel like with Ohio State having to replace both coordinators, I just think that's a big hurdle to handle. Plus, I feel like if they lose early, there's still enough time that they can rally before the end of the year and get into a decent seed for the playoffs.
Because I think this is bigger. Maybe I'm wrong. I think this is bigger for Ohio State because they're bringing in a new quarterback. I don't know all the schedules, but they play Penn State. They haven't beat Michigan. And I want to say they play another top 10 team too in the Big Ten, where they had 2 losses already last year there. If they drop a Texas game, there's a good chance they're in a position Alabama was looking in and not being even in the playoffs. So that's a key game for them where Texas, I don't think their schedule, still playing the 8-game SEC schedule, I don't think that they have a tougher schedule than Ohio State. So people can argue with me on that one. But I mean, we've seen the SEC teams, when you have 3 easy non-conference games and Ohio State has Texas and then they have 9 Big Ten games, you only have 2 cupcakes. There's a difference there. If that one game can actually cause that extra wear and tear. And I'm glad the SEC bent the knee and finally announced that they're going to go to a 9-game schedule. I know from down here in ACC country, they've been panicking a little bit because they didn't want that. That's the last thing the ACC needed, is a chance at Clemson having an extra loss, right? Or Florida State. Heck, Florida State was undefeated. They didn't even get the call. So the ACC definitely doesn't want to have a 1-loss Clemson or Florida State begging to get in, even with the auto bids, right? And so if they get what the SEC wants, where it's only 5 auto bids and the rest are at large, does the SEC get 2 teams, or does the ACC get 2 teams at all? I don't know. 9-game schedule hurts that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the ACC keeps holding out and saying, you know what, we'll just stay with an 8-game schedule. And then they're hoping that we don't get an upset from, like, who knows? Who beat Pitt that year? Was it Bucknell or someone? Like, you don't want that. But the other game, Florida State, Alabama, who do you think got that one?
Well, I got to pick with my heart and go with Florida State. Because
I'm not laughing at you. I knew it was going to come, though.
But who's given Alabama the most problems over the last couple of years?
Michigan, right?
Gus Malzahn. So he's been the guy that's consistently, even with the Saban-led teams, that has given them problems because of formations, shifts, motions, all of the smoke and mirrors that those Auburn teams had. He's there now at Florida State, so I feel like he gives them the best opportunity. He has the quarterback to fully run his system. I think it's put up or shut up time, and then I think they get it done.
Well, like I said earlier, there has to be a ton of pressure on DeBoer. He can't drop a game against Florida State. You know he's not going to go undefeated in the SEC right now.
Well, there's even more pressure on Norvell, I think, because I think if he loses that game, the seat heats up drastically because they're not going to put up with another season like they had last year.
If he keeps it close, they lose the game. Let's say like 28-21 or something. That's not too bad, and they can still make their noise in the ACC. And remember, that game doesn't really matter. Florida State, their best chance of getting in the playoffs is an auto bid, right?
Yeah, but I still feel like it's going to be the way that the game's played. Like if it's just this slow, there's no offense, the defense is giving up big plays, and they backdoor their way into it, like, or they lose it on the last second field goal. Like, I don't know. I still think that seat stays relatively hot for Norvell because he's going to have to prove outside of that first game against Alabama that they rattle off a series of convincing wins.
That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama ends up going with their freshman quarterback this year. Because if I was DeBoer and you're going with an upperclassman when you could be having another younger guy come in, maybe show some promise and get some hype going to give you like 2 years. I mean, that's exactly what Michigan's doing. They named Bryce Underwood the starter. freshman coming in. I'm worried about the same thing you are. Is the offense going to look like it's a mess like last year, where guys are just open and you're just running up the middle and there's no flow? Because I looked at some of the all-22 tape and guys were open. So, like, I don't know how good the receiving core is. If the offensive coordinator's not there, like, it had me begging for Pep Hamilton, dude. Like, let's get some flow going here. And so that's the key. Like, when it's in your hand, where I know Sharon Moore's like the offensive guy, but he was an offensive line guy, so it's different. He's more focused on the running game. They bring in Chip Lindsey from UNC that had a lot of passing experience. I want to see some flow. That's where I think with Alabama, if they're going to have any type of flow on offense, because I saw last year with Milroe, I mean, they looked better in the Rose Bowl, of course. That was their playoff team. Then last year, Michigan played them in that rematch. They had no flow on offense. They couldn't even block Michigan's guys, dude. And people were saying, well, Michigan had a lot of guys drafted. They didn't play in the ReliaQuest Bowl, right? The guys that played in the ReliaQuest Bowl are back on the sidelines for Michigan or on the starting D-line on Michigan this year. So Michigan's going to have a defensive line that crushed Alabama's offensive line in the ReliaQuest Bowl. And guess what? Alabama's guys didn't sit out, right? Milroe played. All those guys played. So honestly, that gives me a little bit of hope for Florida State, because what I saw from Alabama, they didn't have the overwhelming talent that I'm used to seeing from them. And that's why they lose to a team like Vanderbilt, dude, last year. Let's see what happens. If they lose to Florida State, I think the game means a lot more, unless Florida State just gets absolutely hammered, which I don't think is going to happen. I honestly think that's the only way that Norvell's seat's hot. If they lose a close one, people are going to say, well, Bama's back. I've seen people explicitly put them as like the number one team this year. But I'm hoping that we get some upsets and some good games, and I want to see more parity. That's what NIL is supposed to bring. Teams can't just keep offering six figures to guys under the table and then have a team full of 15 5-stars anymore. Now you're seeing a nice, if you look at that composite, it's a lot closer now than what it used to be. And there's a lot more teams in the mix. Even outside of like the top 10 going down to the top 20, there's a lot of 5-stars that are spread out now. And I like to see that. And I hope it continues with the transfer portal. Because why is Ohio State having 10 5-star receivers? They can't all play at the same time, right? Let some of them transfer out to other schools and then see what happens. But that's all I have. I know we're going a little bit longer. Anything else you want to talk about this week?
No, that's about it.
Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully we get some upsets, like I said, a good week of football, and we will see you next week.